So, I have been messing around recently with some very basic forms of video game modding, and I thought I would just sort of spread the information that I've come across so far. It's all out there, but it's generally kind of difficult to find, and it's all over the place, and it's a bit of a mess. And I found a workflow that works for me, and I thought maybe I'd show you guys how I was sort of handling things. Maybe get you started on your own ways. So the first thing you're going to need is some sort of decompiler, and it really does depend on what video game it is you're trying to mess around with, or what program in general you're trying to mess around with. So yeah, you can go to you can get the JD, just Java decompiler. There's a whole bunch of them available. There's .peak for .NET assemblies, which is your C Sharp, your C++. Um, yeah, and you just have to pick the one that can handle the sort of games or the sort of programs you're working with. Generally speaking, especially for like the bigger games, you're gonna find that this doesn't necessarily work. If it were this simple to break into a game, then piracy would be a lot more rampant, and these companies are trying to fight that sort of thing. So yeah, they make it more complicated, and it is more complicated than this. But for a beginner, working with some basic smaller scale, maybe some indie stuff, it's really not too bad. So I'll show you .peak for example first. This is just .peak. I've already downloaded it. Maybe I'll fast forward this, probably not. Yeah, no, I'm too lazy. So yeah, you just find your files. I have my games stored in a separate drive. So I'll come into maybe Cuphead. This is a Unity game, so generally you want to go into managed assembly C Sharp DLL. This is where all the code, all the scripts that they've written can be found. And yeah, and this is it. This is all of the scripts that they use to make Cuphead, and you can just click on one and mess around with it. Player input. Yeah, that seems like a standard class, and yeah, and so this is the code, and you can export this to a separate file, mess around with it, replace it. Just trying to see if there's anything a little bit more concrete I can show you from Cuphead. But yeah, I mean, like, everything's here. I don't know. Projectile spawner is a class that they have, and it's got all the fields and all the methods that it contains, and update will probably be called every frame, and if it's an aimed, then do this code, and so I think you kind of get the idea. And there's like an option to export these into a completely separate project, I believe. Yeah, so here I can just export it to a separate project and tick some boxes, and it'll put these somewhere where I can mess around with them and try rebuilding the project. I can try a different one. I can maybe grab a Terraria. And again, this will only work for .NET based games, so you can also just pop in the exe file half the time, and yeah, so yep, and you can see all of the ways that they've broken it up, and yeah, we've got the main namespace here, and they probably have like an entity as well, I'm assuming. Yeah, entity. Nope. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so they've got like positions, probably velocities in there somewhere, I don't know. Yeah, top left, I assume that's just returning the corners. So yeah, bottom left, for example, return a new vector with the x position and the y position plus the height, because vectors are usually done from top left. So if you want the bottom left, you don't need to mess with the x position, and the y position you need to go down by the height, because you start from the top left and you work downwards in a positive direction. Yeah, so it's you see how this works. This is just all the code for the video game. And again, you just come to here and you export it and you tinker and you mess around. Cool. So the game I'm going to be messing with is a small indie game called Slay the Spire. Hey, 1 second. So I'm just going to grab it from my games drive. There we go. Just grab the jar. Oh. Mind how messy that folder is. I've already thrown a little text document there that just has some stuff I need to know on it. So yeah, this is essentially the entire game. It's a jar file. This is sort of how they zip up all of their Java code, all of their class files. This is where everything is contained. I use 7-zip. I have it on my computer. Let's extract. Well, let's take a look inside first. Yeah, and here are all the folders. You got some DLLs. You got some images. You can see like here you'll have cards. Or there you've got a bunch of assets that they use in game. So on and so forth. There'll be localization in here as well, which will be like just the various strings and stuff. It's just JSON files. You can open these with like well, I'll do it once I've extracted. We'll go through all of that. So yeah, I think what I'll do is I will extract to desktop 1.0. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, maybe I'll edit this. Oh fuck, I forgot about this. I'm gonna say no. Okay, and we just extracted it, so we've got all of the assets and all of the code in here. So as I showed you, you've got like asset files here. You've got like in localization, English for example, you've got, I don't know, characters.json, which you can just edit with whatever notepad you use. I like to use Notepad++, you might want to download it, it's a great piece of software. And yeah, it's just a bunch of strings that the game takes from. Fairly simple. We'll have to mess around with things here eventually. Anyway, to find the code, you go to com. These are the various libraries and other resources they've used from other groups, but Megacrit are the company themselves that produced the game. Cardcrawl is, I presume, what they initially were calling the game internally. And yeah, and these will be all of your. This is how they've sort of broken up the various pieces of code. So cards, I guess, would be the easiest one. A lot of maybe the code words, or not the code words, but a lot of the naming they use might be a bit weird at first, especially because you can't open these. But yeah, like you've got abstract card, which will be the base that they produce cards from, that they inherit from. Hopefully you've got some knowledge of Java or any object-oriented language. Red is ironclad. It's one of the characters. The different characters have different cards, and they're referred to with the color. Yeah, and so these are all the cards. Strike red. If you've played the game, you'll know this is basically the card that he starts off with, or one of the most frequent cards that he starts off with. And so the first thing we'll do is probably mess around with this just to make sure we can get this to work. So, one other issue, and I think I might call this original class files. Well, it's not really original. I should call it original files, but I'm gonna have the original Java files as well, so I'll name it accordingly. You name it whatever you want, really. It's not a big deal. Yeah, this meta-inf tends to shit the bed sometimes. I think by pressing no to all, I fixed the issues I had last time. Maybe? Probably not. Well, anyway, we'll see. So let's open up our command prompt. I forget what's on there already. I am already in my E drive. Hopefully you know how to use the command prompt. If not, it should be fine. You'll probably have it saved in your C drive somewhere. So edev. So in fact, I'm just going to copy this. CD change directory. I don't know if that's what it actually stands for, but that's what I always refer to it as. Oh, we don't want the E there. So this is going to take us into dev/sts/original class, which is this folder here that contains all of this junk. And now we're in here, which is lovely. What I'm going to do is, I know from previous experience, we're just going to test to make sure we've got the game working, and then we'll actually start modding in a bit. I know that the game is run, the main can be found in this class over here, desktop launcher. So let's come into here. Actually, no, let's not do it like that. I think you need to go into original class and then Java comes up. I always forget the syntax for these, so bear with me if it's wrong. I think I'm supposed to have been using dots. Oh no. Oh wait, yep, okay. Maybe I don't need the class at the end. Maybe this is correct. It hasn't crashed yet. Oh, there we go. Easy. So yeah, I guess you don't need to put class at the end because it knows you're trying to run a class file. One thing I will do is go into settings, wherever they are. Oh. There we go. Hopefully you can still hear it, but it's a bit more of a suitable level. And so yeah, we go in and we'll just make sure the game doesn't immediately crash. You can see the various sort of logging that the devs did. Sure, I'll upgrade the card. This is strike red, by the way. This is the card we'll be changing. And I'll finish one battle and just make sure that the game functions properly. So this is Slay the Spire. I suppose, seeing as I'm going to be spending most of my time modding this game, I should probably give you a quick lowdown on how it works. It's a card game. Each card costs mana to play. You have a mana per turn of 3, which can vary based on things. You can see what the enemy plans on doing here. He's going to strike me for 11. So what I'll do is I'll block 10 of that, and I'll play this deal 9 damage card on him. There are status effects and cards that let you draw, and enemies have status ailments and all these sorts of things. And the mechanics build up over themselves. So I'll apply vulnerable here, which is an effect that makes him take more damage, and then I'll play my card because he's not striking me, so I don't need to block. It's a good game. I'm a big fan of it. You should definitely try it out if you haven't already. He's vulnerable. Do I have lethal? I have lethal. And the game did not crash, so that is good. Okay, we haven't really done anything exceptional so far. We've unpacked our jar and we've launched it just using the class where main is. Now let's actually get down to modding. So what we want to do is open up our Java. Oh yes, I should probably show you that. I'm just type JD decompiler. It's a fairly commonly used one. It's quite good. It has some plugins for like some of the IDEs. So feel free to take advantage of those. I'm not going to assume you have Eclipse or anything like that. I'm trying to force you to download as little software as possible. So I'll do most of my stuff in Notepad and Notepad++, maybe a bit. But yeah, you just download. I download GUI as the standalone version. You just get whichever fucking version you want. throw him a dollar if you're feeling kind enough. And yeah, so we'll quickly open it. Okay, so we are in our decompiler. I'll just show you a quick example of what this can do. Good, doesn't have my real name on here anywhere, that's a relief. So what I'll do is I'll go into, excuse the mess, go into STS where we loaded all this junk up. And for example, I can open up one of the pieces of code. Let's go into Strike Red, for example. Yeah, there we go. And it's opened up the entire jar that it belongs to, I assume, because it kind of has to. Yeah, and I don't think you have to do it this way. I think you can literally just throw in the jar, and it's completely fine with that as well. One back. I think you can just throw this in there. No. Yeah, okay. And so it opens up everything, and again, it's just the same layer you saw before. So we've got like cards, and we've got those various image files, and then under com, megacrit.card crawl, you've got all the actual code, and we can go into cards. We can go into red for ironclad, and we can jump into strikered.class. Here we go. And again, this you don't have to be doing it for this game. Other games will work similarly, especially if you can find something with a nice available jar. Then it's just the same process that I'm using. If you can't, you might have to jump through some hoops. If the code's obfuscated, then it's more hoops you got to jump through. But maybe we'll talk about that some other time. And yeah, this is the card. So in the constructor, it calls the parent class constructor with these properties. With these parameters, it sets base damage to 6. Maybe we'll check out super. It's extending abstract card. Abstract card, and actually I can just click on. Oh no, I can't. Okay, well I'll just look at the constructors that abstract card has. Got a couple of enums defined in here. Those will probably come up with some weird file names when you try and decompile them. When you try and recompile them. Yeah, it does things like set name, set ID, set portrait from the image URL you set it, and it'll just look up the right asset. You know what to do if it comes like null. Costs, types, colors. Again, it's just a bunch of stuff that it's just the way they program the game, basically. You, unfortunately, at this point, are gonna have to spend some time getting to know how the game works and how the code works and everything. And we'll talk about that a bit later. But I want to actually mod something before you guys all click off the video. So yeah, we'll mess with Strike Red. So the first thing that we can do is we can save all sources. Most of them have some sort of option to do something like this. So we go into just the same folder that I've been using. Here, we'll come into here and we'll just save these here. And what this will do is it'll actually save the Java files. While this is going, I should tell you, so these are class files. You can't really read those. They've been packaged up, ready for the computer to implement as code. Whereas this Java is the sort of thing that a developer would write code. It's the sort of code you're used to writing, essentially. It's not exactly what they would have written. The decompiler tends to take a bit of a shit all over the code, but I'm sure we'll come across that soon enough. But yeah, so this is what you're comfortable dealing with. This is the Java file. This is the sort of the text that you'd like to save somewhere else. Whereas these are the class files. So this is why we have to go through this process. We need to gain access to all of this code for us to mess around with. And so hopefully that's done now. Yep, here we go. Let's just extract this here with 7-zip. Be that hard. There we go. Just delete that. And so this is the same, but when we come into where all our code files are, so let's say we go into cards. This time, they aren't class files, they're .java files, which are just text files essentially, saved with the extension .java. And so let's go into, say, strike red, the card we want to change. Here. Oh, excuse me. Here we go. And we've got the actual code itself. Fantastic. It will probably be nicer if you edit it with something like Notepad++. It has all of the indentations done nicely for you, and everything gets colored fairly well. And you can use any fancy text editor. Ideally, you know, open this in like Eclipse or like a proper Java editor or something. Although, if you try and open the entire project in something like Eclipse, it won't build properly until you fixed every error. And as I've said, the decompiler tends to take a real shit all over the code. Like, I opened Cuphead as a separate project, and it's like 20,000 errors. Nothing to do with the devs, it's just that's just what happens when you try and decompile it. It unfortunately introduces some problems into the code and it doesn't build properly, and then you have to fix all of them. Whereas with the workflow that we're going to use, you can just change individual files, load them back in. It can get kind of inconvenient at times, but you know, this is more of a learning exercise anyway. So let's change it. What could we change? I guess the obvious thing to change is just the attack damage. So let's make the attack damage, I don't know, 15. Let's make this attack damage 15. Whoops, excuse me. This is debug mode. Let's not worry about all that. Get rid of that. This is what the actual use. This is the part of the use that we actually need to worry about. The rest was just some debugging nonsense. Okay, so abstract dungeon action manager add to bottom. So essentially, it's a complex system that they've created to try and decouple their code, and you need to sort of try and interpret this, which is quite the pain. But we're not going to worry about this yet. You know, if you want to add more complex behaviors, if you want to add our own, you know, status effects and have codes have more complex behaviors, then we need to actually dig through the code and understand how the game handles this sort of thing. But for now, because this is using like sort of the fields that this.damage and all that junk, just by changing this.base damage equals to 15, we should be completely fine. Should we? Where's this.damage? Well, we'll see, I guess. Oh, I shouldn't be doing this in Notepad++, should I? No, let's not save changes. Let's do this in Notepad just so that you guys out there who don't happen to have Notepad++ can see that it's still possible. So yeah, same thing. I'll just cut all. You don't need to actually cut this out. Like it's not a big deal. Yeah, I'll make it 15. We'll make it 15. We will save this. Save as, and what I'll do is I'll go into dev sts. I'll just save it here for now. And we're gonna really need to fix our workflow, add a nice folder and all that, but we'll keep it simple for now. Just because again I really want to get something actually finished. Okay, so this is the file that we've changed. This is I would recommend not actually saving over the files in here. Keep this as a nice resource. So in fact, let's even change this to original Java files. I'll just call it original Java. Oh, of course. You're open. You're not a problem. You are a problem. There we go. I'll open that back up in a second, but for now, all we need to do is recompile this this Java file over here back into a class file, put it into our unzipped version of the code. This is the code we ran right at the beginning, just by running the desktop launcher manually, and just replace the file. So let's do that. We're in original class. I want to back out by one. CD double dot is retreat out by one. Return up by one folder, and the command you want now. Oh, by the way, you'll need to make sure you set up the Java JDK, have it saved in the right place, and have your path variable set properly. There are plenty of resources for that online though, so I'll let you take care of that. Shouldn't be too hard. So yeah, Java compile, I think that's what it stands for. This is a bit of a weird one. I'll explain to you what this command is doing in a second. Typing's not the fastest, unfortunately. So Java compile. Okay, let's actually no. Let's not. Let's just try and Java compile strike red. Whole bunch of errors. You're going to be using this quite a lot. Error. Abstract game action does not exist. Game action manager does not exist. Abstract card does not exist. So all of these all of these imports aren't functioning properly because the code doesn't see them anywhere. And so then all of these methods, like the base constructor, and add to bottom, it has no idea what any of this is. This dot upgraded doesn't mean anything to it. It doesn't know what that means. This method, he doesn't know what that means, because it doesn't know where to get all of these other files from. So that's what that previous command I wrote was for. Whoops. Anyway, so what we do is we append the class path to it. You can Google up more information on how to use things like Java-C and the jar and the various commands we're going to use. But I'll show you everything you need to know to do this. Okay, so now we've only got one error, and that is the package abstract game action does not exist. So where's that line of code? What's it trying to do? This part here gets a bit confused. Abstract game action dot attack effect dot slash diagonal. It's having trouble. Whoops! It's having trouble registering this abstract game action. Why would that be? Ah, okay. So it's because we've imported abstract game action dot attack effect. So either we cut off that. Oops! What the fuck? What am I doing? We either cut off this, and it should work fine, or we could just remove that instead, because it knows what attack effect is. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's static classes, a bunch of them, so I'm not entirely sure. I know that this will definitely work, so let's just stick to this for now. Just so we had attack effect there, I'm just going to get rid of that. Hopefully it's happy now. We'll just run that previous command. Ah, there we go. And now you can see we've generated strike red as a class file, and this is with the changes that we've made. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new copy of my class files. I want to keep the originals all available rather than overwriting them. Oops, sorry, I had to cough. Still kind of do. Anyway. Okay, and we'll rename this, the one that I used to call it is just, I don't know, fucking test room. So this is where we're going to test all of our changes. So what I'll do is I'll take strikered.class, I'll copy it, and we will throw it into, what was it, in cards, wasn't it? Where we initially found it, and red cards. And it was down here, yeah, strike red. So we're just going to overwrite this by pasting in our new one. And that's it. We have now changed the game. So we're in STS. If I go into test room, if I go into that directory, we're in here now. I just want to run com.megacrit.cardcrawl, all that. So and we should be good to go. I should probably like disable the use of the Steam API. I should start a fresh run. So hopefully Ironclad Strike now does 15 damage. Fingers crossed. Yeah, there we go. Sorted. Easy. That's all there really is to it. I should probably like demonstrate that it does 15 damage rather than just playing the game at max speed. Well, he's doing 22 there because he's vulnerable and it does. Okay, I'll do another one. It's my fault. I have to remember that a lot of you guys probably haven't played Spire before. There you go, 15 damage. 15 damage. That's all there really is to it. Where to go from here? There are some slightly more involved commands that we need to start messing around with, but we'll maybe save those for a later day. So let me just open up the decompiler again. So really what you want to do from here onwards, your next step would be to take a look through the code. Let's find, okay, well, no, I'll save this for something, maybe it's like a separate video or something. But you want to get some familiarity with how everything works, you know, how the code functions, how the devs have set everything up. And once you have a slightly better understanding, you can then go in and start making your own changes. Like, you know, the sky's the limit when it comes to what you can do. Anything you can program in, you know, because you have complete access to the source code now. So anything you can write, you can put into the game if you want to. You'll probably want to start off with small changes, you know, make the guard, make like the basic block card, block some more damage, maybe add in a card of your own and work out how to do that without breaking everything. It's more complicated than just adding a new file to the cards list, unfortunately. You need to actually find out where the cards are referenced and how it knows where the cards exist and actually make those changes yourself. And you know, maybe you want to add your own relics or your own status effects, and we'll probably talk about these all later eventually. But yeah, maybe you'll add your own character eventually once you have a better idea of how it works, create some new mechanics. You know, it's completely up to you, but you'll want to start by getting a familiarity with exactly just how this code base functions. And of course, do it for your own, well, for whatever game it is that you're modding. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I'm sure you probably do. I'm sure I probably can't answer most of them. But yeah, you have a nice day.